Okay, so we are live on Facebook, I think now. Just a few technical difficulties, which I think is to be expected. So first off, I would like to welcome all of our downtown Rotarians and those guests that are joining us as well. I just want to thank you all as we enter into yet another new platform. We are broadcasting this Zoom via our Facebook Live. So again, welcome to all the Rotarians and guests. And we're going to start off with the rotary four-way test. And I would like everybody to keep that in mind as we are on this call today. Is it truthful? And hang on, because I'm having some technical difficulties now. But you'll be able to find out the rotary test out there. Is it beneficial to all? Is it truthful? And those are things we want to keep in mind today as we move this conversation forward. We're grateful that Mayor Paul Ten Haken is joining us today. And we will take questions from Rotarians. You can post those in the comments below. And we would like to keep all the conversation professional and productive today. So I'm going to turn this conversation over to Tony Knorr with First Premier Bank and welcome him and Mayor Ten Haken. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, President Jesse. Welcome Rotarians and guests joining us today. And welcome Mayor Ten Haken. Thank you for being with us here today. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. Unprecedented times we're living through right now, and we wanted you to have an opportunity to talk to our members, talk to our community. We're all living through this and navigating this together, and thought it'd be great to hear from you today. Let's go ahead and start by getting your assessment of where we're at today as a city, how we're sitting, and where we go from here.
Yeah, so first off, thanks for having me. I know this is a unique format for you guys to use, and give you a lot of kudos for adjusting and kind of pivoting what you guys are doing to make this work. So thank you. Look forward to seeing you guys in person soon and giving you a real in-person update when we kind of start to cool down a little bit. Had a press conference this morning, and we shared the most recent numbers in the city of Sioux Falls and where we sit with our COVID response. Was just reviewing, and I'll hold this up here. I don't know how well you can read that, but what this is a list of the top 100 MSAs in the country in terms of their COVID cases per capita. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, we're currently the 11th highest rated city in the country in terms of the COVID cases per capita at around 545 per 100,000 residents. A lot of people will talk about Smithfield. You take out the Smithfield cases, we're at about 40th in the country out of 340 MSAs. So we're still high, even without Smithfield cases. Today at noon, I believe it's probably getting announced right now, we only saw 9 new Smithfield cases with today's numbers. So we've been testing the heck out of Smithfield employees. They've been in double digits for a long time. Now we're starting to see a little bit of a decline in the number of Smithfield cases. We saw it over the weekend. Today they're in single digits for the first time in a long time. So while the Smithfield situation is starting to find itself getting under control slowly, now we're seeing the spread in other areas, other businesses, other places throughout the community. So we, as of last week, got some updated data from both Sanford, from Abera, and as well as the State Department of Health. And it's really the first time that we got data for only our MSA that those 3 healthcare partners agreed on, and could work together to say, okay, we all feel comfortable around this. What that showed us is a mid to late May peak for the number of COVID cases, and peak in the number of hospitalizations we're going to see, and tells us that our peak and their capacity as organizations is going to be doing this. We're basically going to be rubbing the ceiling of their capacity. So you can look at that 2 ways. You can look at that as good news, which I do, but you can also say there's not much room for error. All you need is another Smithfield type of outbreak in our community, and we'll be pushing above that, the capacity of our healthcare systems, and then we'll have some challenges. And so we're in kind of this tense situation. I would rather have us be up here or down here, but when you're living right here, it's very hard to know what are the right steps to take, what are the right measures to take, because the stool that we're balancing, I talk about this a lot, is this stool of the economy on one leg, constitutional rights on another leg, and public health on the third leg. And as soon as you make a decision to affect one, the other two legs start to wobble. And quite honestly, the other legs get mad. And so what you're trying to do is figure out how you keep the stool balance. It's incredibly, incredibly tense balance.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And talk to us a little bit about that. You and Governor Nome share the same goals, same outcomes, maybe a difference in opinion in how we get there. Your administration shifted gears late last week. Talk to us about that and your work with the Capitol.
Yeah, so roughly 85% of all the COVID cases in South Dakota are in Sioux Falls. And so you have two outbreaks happening. You have South Dakota and you have Sioux Falls. And every morning you turn on any news station, Sioux Falls, South Dakota is in the news for the growth of COVID cases that we're seeing here. And
all right. We were just covering, we've got a lot of attention we didn't ask for, we don't necessarily want.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your administration's response, what prepared us for this, or you for this, and go through some of the values that you use as you make decisions for our city.
Yeah, a big part of it, and we were talking there earlier about this ethical dilemma test, where I asked myself these questions. I'm looking at them over here. How will this decision make me feel in 20 years? And would I do this if I was being videotaped? And will my loved ones be proud or ashamed of me? The way I act, the way I treat people. Those are the things I think about. And so what I need to look at is, okay, in 10 years from now, well, I want to say, man, I way overreacted to that COVID thing. And if I did, I can certainly live with that. But if I look back and say, I did not do all I could, and as a result of my inaction, lives were lost, jobs were lost, families were broken, that would be a very hard thing to live with. And that's a very heavy kind of burden, to know that you're making those levels of decisions every day, whether it's the ordinances you're putting into place or whether it's the policies that you're working with a city council on. And so it's hard. It's really hard. And I think this reinforces, when I campaigned for mayor, I talked a lot about principled executive leadership. That's a term I used a lot. And I think what you want right now in elected officials is principles, and you want people who have been in tough positions, in executive leadership positions, people who have had to lead teams through hard times, because that's what we need right now. And that's what I was saying earlier. I'm not a great politician, but I enjoy leading through these issues and trying to come up with solutions and pivoting when we have to, and say, okay, based on this, we're going to go this way. And now we know this, and we're going to do this, and continue adjusting and readjusting to do the best we can.
Yeah, well said. And thank you for your leadership through this. Speaking of leadership, let's talk One Sioux Falls Fund. This is something you jumped on early. Tell us what led you to that, and then also if you can share some of the impacts that we're starting to see from that work.
Well, right out of the gate, actually, as soon as we got our first case in Sioux Falls, and I started to see the impact that single case was having on the fear that was being instilled in people, in our economy, and layoffs started, I knew it was going to be bad. And I knew we couldn't wait for the feds. And something that I have learned over time is you can't wait on the feds to come and help you. You have to take the bull by the horns and say, okay, we're going to do things at a local level. You may have heard the phrase, all politics is local. Well, it's like, I know there's Fed relief coming, but we can't wait for that, because I got people who are going to need rent now. And so one of the first calls I made, and I'm not just saying this, but I called, your employer, Tony, and I said, listen, we got to stand up a fund now, and we have to have some money in there now, because in 10 days, it's going to be the end of March, and people are going to need rent money. And so worked with 211 and worked with other employers in the community, many of whom are likely or who I know are downtown Rotarians. A lot of our banking community members, obviously Denny Sanford made a huge gift to this. So to date, we've had over 3,200 different families apply for rental assistance or relief from this fund. And we've distributed to almost 1,700 of those, so almost half, a little north of $1 million. And so those are very vetted. We're not just giving people blank checks. We're not paying their full freight of their rent. We're paying 70% of their rent. They still have to cover some, but housing is one of the, my One Sioux Falls framework that we work off, housing there is one of the core functions of that framework. It's one of the most important things we're working on in our administration. So the more we can keep people in their housing now, to keep them out of assistance, out of the system, off, welfare, so they aren't homeless. Anything we can do for that now, we have to. And so really proud of how the community has stepped up. The Development Foundation, like I said, financial institutions. There are cities 10 times our size who are bragging about their $2 million funds that they've got going from their community. And at Sioux Falls, we got $3.2 million that we stood up that's helping families.
Yeah, fantastic, and thank you for sharing. And you alluded to it. We live in a very generous community. As you have helped us navigate through this, what else would you share, stories or otherwise, of response that you've seen throughout the community that has made you proud as our mayor, and that we could share with the audience?
Yeah, man, there's so many. I have right over there on my ledge, obviously you can't see it, I got a stack of cards and letters this thick. It covers my whole ledge, of people who are just encouraging me. And I'm not making this about me, but we have just such great hearts in this community. People want to help. And one of the best examples of that was this Corona Help SF group that got together almost as quick as the One Sioux Falls Fund. They saw the writing on the wall, the church community united. They're doing, thousands of distributions already to people who are either shut into their home, don't want to leave, are short on toilet paper, are short on groceries, want someone to go get their groceries. To me, that's the church being the church. The church is united, being the hands and feet of service. And so not only the hearts of people reach out and send letters, but more so that Corona Help SF is tremendous. And I've had other cities, my friend who's the mayor of Boca Raton, for instance, he reached out and said, hey, I need you to know we copied your Corona Help SF. It's perfect. We just copied and pasted the exact program. We're doing it in Boca Raton because we just think it's so incredible. So that was really neat how that program came together.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing, and we're fortunate to have a lot of community leaders that are all pulling on the rope together. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about our city tax revenue. We're probably just starting to get some early indications of what this will mean for us as a community in terms of whether it be sales tax, hotel tax. What does that do, the impact of the changes there for us as a city moving forward as we make decisions?
Yeah. Well, we don't have enough data in yet to know what the ramifications are, and it's hard to even have good projections because we announced our March sales tax and entertainment tax numbers recently, like a week ago, and March was up like 6%. So it's not indicative of what we've seen in the last 30 days, and we really won't know April numbers really till about June. So there's this trailing lag in what's happening now and what the city will realize or know as a result of that. Can I tell you, we're making plans as a city for anywhere from 10 to 20% cuts that we have to make in the city's budget based on where those sales tax revenues are going to come in. What does that mean for the city? That means quality of life projects that have to be put on hold. That means limited investment in roads and infrastructure. We'll continue to invest in critical services. We'll continue to staff our PD, and we'll continue to staff on, wastewater techs to make sure our toilets flush and we have those critical services. But, parks amenities, bike trail extensions, new libraries, things like that. Those are the things that we're going to see impacting our community for a little while here. And so come June, probably end of May to sometime in June, we'll really know what we're looking at for a shortfall. But I will say this, going into this pandemic, the city of Sioux Falls is in one of the strongest positions as a city than any city in the country. Some of these cities were going into this broke already, and this is just gonna cripple them. We have a strong reserve. We've had strong fiscal management, over the last couple decades. I mean, Sioux Falls is known for that. And so previous administrations, previous finance directors have put us on a good path. We spend smart. And so while we'll be hurting, we're going to come out okay from this as a city. And doesn't mean there's going to be some tough decisions, but we're going to be all right.
Yeah, excellent. And yeah, you're absolutely right. As you mentioned earlier, the longer this goes on, the more impact we'll have, and a lot of that is yet to be written. Let's move on to let's talk flooding.
Let's not.
City had a big response last year to this. How are we doing this year in terms of preparedness, and what are you hearing in terms of what we can expect as a community?
Well, man, a year ago at this time, we were dealing with flooding, and I've been thinking about that almost daily during this pandemic. I'm like, what if we had flooding going on right now on top of this? I mean, it would be tough. We had a very mild last 3 or 4 months in terms of snowfall. We were very blessed. So not only did that help our budget from a snow removal budget, that water table has had a chance to go down. It's had a chance to slowly melt. We're in a very good spot with flooding outlook. As of a month ago, I mean, we were still doing emergency sandbagging operations, working with the Department of Corrections, and we got pallets and pallets of sandbags and ready. But with each day that goes by, that flooding forecast is looking very, very manageable, to the point where you're the first person, quite honestly, that's asked about flooding in about 3 weeks, and I'm rubbing elbows with Regan Smith, our emergency manager, every day, who would be in charge if we had a flooding epidemic, and he's not talking about that. So I think we're in an all right spot.
Yeah, that's great, and that can change, but it's great to know we got enough to deal with today.
I think we're going to be all right with flooding. I really do.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Let's talk about another big one for our region, for our state, agriculture. Our number one industry. It goes without saying there was challenges in the industry prior to COVID-19. Talk about what the last 30 to 45 days, what you've seen, the impact of Smithfield, and what that means for our producers upstream, and then also the demand for fuel, ethanol, and what that could potentially mean for our growers out there.
Well, I mean, you kind of hit on it there. It's tough in ag right now. It was tough already going into the pandemic, and not only with the trade tensions in China and what that's done for our soybean growers, over the past, year and a half to 2 years, but now what the Smithfield situation has done to our pork producers and all the upstream and downstream logistical portions of that. We talk about the truckers and the trucking industry, and the feed industry and all the layers that are affected by Smithfield. It's challenging. And it's very important for people to realize Smithfield decided to close on their own. All right. The mayor of Sioux Falls does not have the ability to shut down a multi-million-dollar, just walk in and shut down a plant. We encouraged them to close. So we said, you got a problem and we got to figure this out together. They made the decision to close. That then has strongly impacted, obviously, the pork industry from this whole region. But we're in there today, literally, with the CDC and the State Department of Health and attorneys and others working on a reopening plan. We want to get Smithfield open as quickly as is safely possible. Okay, so the sooner they can get open, we can like, all right, now we can check the pork industry. Let's try and get them back on track. Okay, now let's work on this industry. And how can we get this back on track? And there's all these different levers we got to keep moving to try and get these different industries back and rolling again. So I know, the federal government has programs that they've been rolling out, as you guys know, through the subsidy programs and through the CARES Act that are helping our ag industry. One of the concerns with having Smithfield close is the dent in the food supply chain, and you don't just recover from that quickly. I mean, that puts a big dent all the way upstream and downstream, and so it's tough. It's tough out there in ag, but I'll tell you what, you name me an industry that it isn't tough in right now. Whether you're in hospitality, whether you're in ag, whether you're in tourism, whether you're in the restaurant business, whether you're in banking and dealing with, the PPP, efforts, and you're dealing with like gut-wrenching client decisions every day, and people
Mhm.
deciding, do I even keep my doors open anymore? Is this even worth it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough.
You're absolutely right. There is nowhere to hide with this. But talk to our Rotarians and others listening today. As we look to the future, you're starting to hear on a national level, at least, some talk of how we reopen, how we get back to work. I know we're in a different situation here, but fast forward 8 to 9 months into 2021. What gives you hope, and what do you see from your vantage point today, looking forward?
Yeah, well, to your first point about reopening, it's like I don't even want people to be listening to that conversation because we're in the first inning of this here. I mean, we're getting this and we're seeing the results way later than they're seeing on the coast. We're in different spots. So that's the hard part, quite honestly, about this whole response in general is oftentimes walking back federal talking points. They're like, okay, that's great, that's not where we're at here, people, so please don't listen to that, because we have to do what's right for us here. And as Fauci has said all the time, he's like, the virus sets the timeline on when you're ready, and anything early, you're just setting yourself up for more problems down the road. That being said, the sooner we can get past this, the better. And people need to know we're like fighting every day in this office. I'm fighting with my public health director, with my attorney, with my planning and zoning people. There's this tension where I'm pushing to open and they're pushing for safety. And this person, and the lawyer's saying, you can't do that because of the law. And it's like, we just want it to be over. We just want it to be over. And February 15, we're not going to go back to February 15, 2 months ago when it was great. Life was great. It's going to be a long time before we're in that spot again, and people have to accept that. Now, in early 2021, where do I see us? I see us still recovering from this, still rebounding from this, but we are a super resilient city. And I got to go back to what I said earlier, that we come into this thing as one of the cities with the strongest financial position of any municipality our size. So we'll be able to start to do some creative things, not only with financing, but in ways to attract tourism back to our city and other things that will start to open our restaurants up again and open our bars back up again. And we're working on a resiliency program that I'll talk about here in a little bit, that is encouraging businesses to already start thinking about 2021. I know you got to live in the now, but start thinking ahead, because we're going to get there, and you need to be ready for what it looks like when the COVID pandemic has passed, so you're prepared to reopen and reopen well.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We have a lot of Rotarians, business owners. I mean, we're all either an owner of a business or working for a business. So I know that will be welcomed, and thank you for that. Let's talk about another initiative that we sat in the Belvis Theater just a couple months ago, talking Sioux 52, your mentoring initiative that Downtown Rotary Helpline Center, a number of us came together to launch. Talk to us about what mentoring looks like in 2020 and beyond through Sioux 52.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, God, does that seem like a million years ago that we sat and did that? I mean, it's just, we're in weird times, but if there's ever been a need for people to need or want a mentor in their life, it's probably right now. There are a lot of business owners that are needing another business person to walk alongside them and help them through what's going on. There's a lot of people in our immigrant community who have a lot of questions and who are struggling to trust right now, and who have, unanswered questions about the economy. And will Smithfield reopen? Will I have a job here in Sioux Falls again? What should I do? Should my family and I move? Um, Having someone walk alongside someone to do life with right now is so, so important. There's a lot of kids. If you think kids were struggling before when they could go to school and at least have structure from 8 to 3 every day, now rip all that structure out from them and stick them in an apartment, right? Or a rental home, or, in the basement of their house all day, every day, while mom and dad are still trying to work. They need someone in their life. And so mentoring has taken a different form, because unless you're family, people are skittish, and don't want to touch and don't want to go near, and nor should they. But there's still ways to have impact on people, and to invest in people virtually, and invest in people through technologies like this, to say, listen, I'm here. Time is tough. If you need someone to talk to, you got to know I'm here. Okay. If no one else is here, I'm here for you. And that's the point of mentorship, is to, help people realize and understand that they're never alone on a rough journey. And there's probably no rougher journey than people have ever been on than the one we're on right now.
Yeah, well said. Well, as downtown Rotary and Rotarians, we stand committed to what we all stood on the stage and launched here a few months ago. I was still trying to work through exactly what that looks like in this new environment.
So are we, man. So are we.
We will work together on that. And if there's any community, and I've always said, if you're going to go through the environment we're going through, where else on the planet would you rather be than Sioux Falls, South Dakota?
Right.
We will figure it out,
right.
and we'll do it in a big way. You talked about mentoring. As Rotarians, we have an appreciation for public service, for mentoring. How about you? As we've navigated through this, who would you credit for being in your corner? Who are your role models that you're leaning on? What does that look like for you over the last 30 to 45 days?
Oof, that's a good question. I mean, I got a lot of people in my corner, a lot of smart people, and I always got to give a tip of the hat to my chief of staff, Erica Beck. Incredibly smart lady. She keeps me focused. She's very in touch with, the economy and our business community, but also has a very empathetic heart. And so we're both in our seats, in our chairs right now for the same reason. We felt called to serve our city in this way. And so I rely on her a lot. I also have just several guys that I get together with every Thursday morning, and we do Zoom calls like this. And I'm not going to say them by name, but they're a bunch of type A guys that are trying to figure out what success looks like in this new landscape, and trying to pivot from success to significance. And what does that look like? It's like, all right, look how quickly it can all go, and how quickly this can all be gone from us. And why are we here? Why are we struggling with this? Why are we trying to make more money, sell more widgets, make more donuts, when, within a month it can be gone? And so what's our purpose? And so that's what keeps me grounded a lot, is reminding me like why I'm here and what I'm doing. So those guys, Erica, my chief of staff, and then obviously my wife is just, she's got a hard job right now. I'll be honest. It's hard to be the mayor's wife right now. And it's hard to be the mayor's kids right now. And so I learn a lot from them. I really lean on them a lot, and I lean on my wife a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Family's important, and I know you have a great team there at the city to helping you navigate this. I will say I have appreciated the communication that's come from your office, whether that's from your garage, whether it's including Nora reading to the kids of the community. So keep up the good work with that. Let's talk about your the initiative that you brought up earlier in terms of speaking to the business community, and what that looks like.
So what we're finding is that if our projections would hold, let's say they do, because we have to base our all our decisions based on our most recent data. Most recent data shows that at our peak or our rates in Sioux Falls, we're going to be tapping on the ceiling of our healthcare capacity. So we need to find a way to free up some space and give a more of a cushion and a buffer. And so how do you do that? Well, there's a few different tools you can use. One is looking at where are the problem areas right now in a community where you see spread. And you see spread happening, and all you have to do is drive past a big box retailer or food store on a weekend, and it's bad. It's packed. There's no social distancing. There's just it's where it's the ant's nest, okay, of where people are going. So those are problem areas. You can go to some manufacturing facilities where call centers, places like that, where business owners, many of which are doing a great job, but some still have not taken probably the right precautions that they need to take. And so we're launching a program called SOAR, Supporting Operations and Resiliency. And what we're trying to do with that is provide resources, different tools, on-site consults to help business owners understand how to adjust their business practices in this new normal. Because the quicker they take it seriously, avoid spread, keep their employees safe, the quicker they're going to come out of this thing. And I can tell you, Smithfield a month ago was not thinking that they were going to be closed and have the CDC walking around their plant right now. There's no way. But that's how quickly the paradigm can shift. And so we're trying to get business owners that you need to take this seriously. Big box stores, you need to take this seriously. Here's what we expect as a city. And so we'll be able to go into those businesses through our health department, through our planning and inspection department, and say, hey, have you guys considered this? Hey, you're doing this. Hey, you had an employee reach out to us and said you got 8 people in a break room at one time. You should look at changing this. There's no fines. There's no ordinances. We're trying to help businesses be more successful right now. And I'll tell you what I've noticed is there is a customer loyalty that comes from customers who recognize their business is doing the right thing during this time. And on top of that, there's an employee loyalty that comes as well when they say, hey, my employer's doing this. My employer's giving me, employees recognize that and they appreciate that and they will be loyal. So cutting corners for business owners, while it may seem like, oh, I can squeeze a little more margin out of things right now because it's so bad if I do this, that's not worth the sacrifice in the long run. And that's what we're trying to help businesses do with this SOAR program, the details of which, there's a lot more to it that we'll be announcing tomorrow.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. I know over the weekend too, you brought up SOAR. You also have your mayor's 100 miles in 100 days. The weather's starting to get nice. Talk about that initiative and what you're hoping to have happen.
Well, one of the responsibilities you have when you're messaging all this stuff and you're showing, data that says, okay, we're 11th in cases per capita, and you still have to keep people's mental and physical well-being in a good spot. And so to my previous point, if I can keep people out of Lowe's and Home Depots, and I'm sorry, business owners, but that's just our goal right now, is to keep people from congregating in mass in large places. And I can get them walking or running or out getting fresh air and helping their mental health and getting them away from the media and getting them away from this. That's very important. So, people will say, well, doesn't that send the wrong message? You're saying stay at home and we're supposed to only stay at home and go out for essential activities. You are, and exercise is an essential activity, okay? You need to get your butt off the couch, shut off CNN, shut off Fox News, and get some exercise, all right? Get out and walk, get out and run, do it while you're respecting other people with proper social distancing. I think you can still have some fun during this time, okay? It's not all doom and gloom. Exercise and physical fitness and wellness is important to people's mental wellness. And so that's why we're pushing that to encourage people to take care of themselves during this time.
Yeah, thank you for issuing that challenge. And then as Rotarians and others that are watching, what needs out there are still unmet? that you would say, hey, if there was one or two takeaways of things that someone listening today could take away to make a positive impact, what would those top few things be?
What needs are unmet? I would say, we're still not going to have enough funds in our One Sioux Falls fund. So there's always money, and we're going to need more money in that fund. The PPP fund was dry after, you would know, 7 days, 10 days. I mean, it was gone. And so there's still going to be funding challenges from this. So, that's one need that's out there. Two, I think in the business community, there's a continued need for education amongst businesses who are still open, but are not taking the right precautions and the right steps in their business. There's still just education that has to be done. And so I end up being the bad guy in all this because it's like, every decision falls on me, but I need other partners in the community to say, we as Rotary, we recommend and encourage our members to follow these steps and do these things. And we're going to push this. I need the chamber to push this. I need the Development Foundation. Instead of it's just always is coming from the mayor's office, and it's like we need the community to embrace these messages as well. So that's the other thing is we just need more evangelists and more champions in the community to encourage people to take this seriously and continue to do the right things, because it's pretty evident. Not only is the data is a little soft on supporting a shelter in place, but there's not an appetite for it in the city. There's not. So people they're not gonna do that. So what else can we do then to ensure that we don't end up with people, in lobbies, in hallways, on beds, because we didn't take it seriously enough, we didn't flatten the curve enough, and that capacity of our healthcare systems was surpassed.
Yeah, thank you. And we had a question come in from one of our Rotarians. Talk to us about masks. The guidance has changed from the CDC over the last week or two. The city's position on the use of masks. What are you sharing with citizens out there?
I wear a mask anytime I go into any public store. A mask, especially a cloth mask, the only thing that's doing is preventing you from getting other people sick, right? So it's not preventing you from taking in anything bad. So someone sneezes in your face, you're still going to get it. But if you sneeze, it dampens that. That's the point of wearing those masks. On top of that, it's almost the social etiquette right now to say, listen, I'm wearing this because I don't want to get you sick, instead of I'm wearing this because I don't want to get sick. It's the opposite. So we're asking people to think kind of in a selfless way. Someone explained it to me like this. He said, listen, your right to swing your fist stops at my nose. So meaning, yeah, you can swing all you want, but as soon as you hit me, now it's my problem, okay? And you've projected that on me. Masks help you do that. It's your right to be out, but you should wear the mask to prevent you from spreading any germs or viruses.
Yeah, well, thank you. And like you said, this is a unique challenge and one where we got to take our own individual responsibility to help others. And we're all in this together, whether we're Rotarians, citizens of Sioux Falls, employees of the city. Mayor, thank you for your time, your leadership, being with us here today. Anything that you want to leave our guests with as we wrap up our time together?
I guess what I'll leave with is that the best way that we will get through this is through a selfless kind of united approach. We have to work together as a community. And when you see things like the Corona Help SF and how the church community unites, I have had more people reach out to me and say, hey, first off, I didn't vote for you and I didn't like you, but I'm glad that you're uniting the community. So uniting Republicans and Democrats, different church congregations, different businesses, we all have the same enemy, and that is just getting past this and getting over it. So the government's not the enemy. Smithfield's not the enemy. Smithfield employees are not the enemy, okay? COVID's the enemy. The more we can come up with strategies where we can work together to get past this, I'd welcome them. So I would throw this out to your membership. Look for ways when we start getting on the downtick of COVID and we're ready to quote unquote reopen, what are things we could do in our business community? Loyalty programs, incentives. How are we going to get tourists here? What can we do to make this city the most resilient city where people around the country say, Sioux Falls, did you see how quick they bounced back from this thing? Wow, did you see what their business community did? We did it with the One Sioux Falls Fund. Now what can we do to say we can set up this quote unquote fund or this program, whatever it is, to just get us up and humming and clicking as fast as possible?
Yeah, that's fantastic, and we appreciate that. This is a time, as you said, unlike any other, and a time for us to lift each other up as we move through this. So, thank you again for your time with us
Thanks,
today.
Tony.
We really appreciate you being here with us, speaking to our members and speaking to those in our community.
Anytime, man. Thank you guys. Be safe, everybody.
Thanks, Mayor.
All right. We'll see ya.